because the Americans are as sensible as we are. Nobody likes politicians. People are genuinely pleased with him. I think the fake news lies and says his approval ratings in the doldrums. That's not true either. The numbers for Doge, government savings are now on the US debt clock. You know that debt clock web page everybody's seen? And I think we're at about $200 billion saved.
Let's talk about Trump domestically. How's he doing? He impressed me in the first 2-3 weeks, the things he was doing, reducing illegal immigration by 93% in the first fortnight. And then came along the Doge, the things he's uncovering, the corruption, the waste of money. It's been nearly 2 months now. How's it all going?
He started strong. I think it tapered off a little bit the last few weeks because he's got a lot going on, hasn't he? But people are genuinely pleased with him. I think the fake news lies and says his approval ratings in the doldrums. That's not true either. His base is made up with what he's done. I think the last approval rating polls put him at about 40%. But if you look at his base, the people who put him there, it's about, I think 46% was the last I saw. That's his base. Then the swing voters might be, buying into some of the nonsense that's in the media. Generally, though, he's got a favourable approval rating. If 46%, it sounds bad. But if you look at approval ratings for US presidents throughout history, 46% is about where they're normally at. I mean, because the Americans are as sensible as we are. Nobody likes politicians. 46%. Nobody's ever got a 90% approval rate. Do you know what I mean? So I think the media are making hay with it and going, oh my God, he's less than half of the country is favourable of him. But I was like, yeah, if 46% are very favourable, he's doing a good job. And then there's probably 20 that are meh. Ultimately, people are happy with his performance. All of his base and some of the centrists. He started strongly. The numbers for Doge, government savings are now on the US debt clock. You know that debt clock web page everybody's seen? And I think we're at about $200 billion saved, which is $200 billion. It works out about $1,400 for every American taxpayer. Who's unhappy about that? And some of the stuff, at the end of the day, this stuff writes itself. Who is angry about stopping our money going to LGBTQ plus theatre productions in Egypt or whatever they were spending money on? And basically, that is bipartisan. You've got the woke, which is the sort of 15% of the planet that are mentally ill and refuse to gaze upon reality as it actually is, as the Vance thing proved. Just inventing this stuff in their heads. But I think the vast majority of people, even Democrat voters, like my mother-in-law's a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. But when you say to her, so should we send $800,000 to the Egyptian lesbian dance troupe? She doesn't go, oh, no, that's a good idea. She goes, yes, get rid of it. I think he started strongly. 200 billion is not a small amount of money. Funny old thing. And the general public seem to be right on board with it. I don't think he's hit any major roadblocks in the last couple of months. Not really. I think generally people are behind his mission, and I think he's doing a decent job.
I'll tell you who I've been impressed with, and that's his press secretary. The only stands up in the White House in front of the press and gives updates. I like her.
She is good.
Yeah, some of the things she shot down reporters on. I remember a reporter trying to catch her out saying, ICE capturing, illegal immigrants and not all of them are criminals and you deported them. She went, whoa. The fact they're illegal immigrants means that they broke the law coming in this country, which means the criminals, which means they'll be deported. And she stops them in the track and just straight down the line tells them the fact. I like her.
She's brilliant. I like the last one as well. That was Kayleigh McEnany. I know her because she's always on Fox. But yeah, this lass is Caroline Levitt, she's called. She's great. That's a good job. I'd like that job. I guess I'm not attractive enough. Trump always picks hot women to be his press secretaries. I think she's doing a hell of a job. The thing is, I will say, you do have to take them with a pinch of salt, because in the United States, they do know there's a large element of political theatre to it all. And it's basically the press secretary's job to only ever say positive things about the boss, like ever. So people know there's an element of theatre to it. Um, don't be fooled into thinking that every single American's like, oh, this is all gospel. Everyone knows there's an element that way. Because I mean, look at the last one, that Corinne St. John or whatever she was called, Pierre. Just outright lies all the time. This lass at least does a good job of sort of toeing the line between sort of leaping into fiction and at least spinning it in a good manner. And I think she's really good at that, because it's rare she tells an outright falsehood. She just puts a good Trumpian spin on everything, and it's very entertaining to watch. She's good at her job.
No, she is. She is. Apart from obviously the immigration and Doge and stopping the wars, has Trump got anything else going on at the moment? Or is it too early in his administration for him to be looking at anything else?
I think he's got a lot going on, hasn't he? I think that's why he might have stalled a little bit. Like, for the first month, it seemed like he just threw himself into domestic policy, cutting and slashing, shoring up the border, saving us money, like big things that he promised and he has got done. But I think in the last few weeks, he's got tied up with foreign policy, hasn't he? So the war, the meeting with Zelensky, there's issues with Taiwan as well. There's a lot going on. So I think he's going to have to put in the hours and really start kicking the ass out the overtime, because there's a lot going on. At the end of the day, the world's in ruins at this point. Like, thanks to 40 years of this neoliberal globalist thing going on, where the plan appears to be, as far as I can tell, turn the entire planet into one gigantic country that's awful. That's indistinguishable, isn't it? That's the plan, and this is why I've talked about it a lot. Like, to me, a country is as precious as an endangered species. A panda is precious because there's not many of them. Well, if in 50 years' time, Scotland and Japan and France and Rome sorry, I went between nations and cities there. But you know what I'm saying? Italy, France, Scotland, Japan, if they're all completely indistinguishable from each other, something precious has been lost there. And that seems to have been the plan for the last 40 years. And the only bumps in the road are Donald Trump and populist leaders. As I said to you, I think the right and the left paradigms died. And now it's just basically nationalists and nation states versus globalist sociopaths who want to turn the entire planet into Manhattan. And I think it's an evil thing. So he's got his work cut out. He started his first month doing all the domestic policies, and I think now he's branching out into the global stuff. And he needs to tighten his belt and get involved, because he's the bulwark against the shadow, as far as I'm concerned.
Am I right in thinking that America has changed in this last 2 months? And I'll give you two quick examples. The first one is some of the woke TV shows like The View, and some of the presenters on NSBC, whatever it's called, have been fired. So the media's changing there because there's no money in it. And then some of the city mayors are being dragged over the coals because they're almost bankrupt. And we're finding out they've spent all the money because of a sanctuary city. They've spent it on illegal immigrants. And the residents of those cities are now open arms. Am I right in thinking both of that's happening now?
100%, yeah. Because he's the leader of the free world for a reason. Where he goes, the world follows. I think it's even helping Europe. I think people have realised. Look at them. He's been telling them to up the defence spending for years, and now it's happening because he's setting the tone. The woke stuff's definitely fallen by the wayside. Even the big corporations are starting to. I told you my missus some inside information. She works as an editor and a writer and a proofer for one of these big corporations that does all the pamphlets and HR materials for these big companies. And she said even she's noticed there's been a drop off in like woke stuff. Like I can't name individual companies, but she said one of them was like, get rid of all the DEI stuff, get rid of it. They've realized that it's not popular. And just to give you one really good example, one of the most woke places on planet Earth is the Los Angeles, California. We have red voters, but it's always in the small towns. Like my town, everyone's Republican. But in the big cities, they're all dyed-in-the-wool Democrats. Even though Los Angeles voted for Kamala Harris by about 15 points or whatever it was, they threw out, because in the States, it's not like in England where you just vote for your politician. Here, your ballot's about 3 foot long, and you've got to vote. Yeah, you've got to vote on individual measures, so you get a much better gauge of what the public sentiment is. And the DA, which is the guy who does all the prosecuting in LA, was a super woke lefty tosspot called George Gascon. And George Gascon got threw out on his ass. So they went down that ballot and they were like, oh, I'm voting for Kamala because I'm a Democrat. But the second they got to the crime and punishment stuff, they went Republican, 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 Republican. Even there, they've had enough of it. Because in downtown LA, there was all these stories about this young black lass who was an Olympian, a very liberal woman. And she makes a video about it saying, I got my jaw broke because a crazy hobo with an iron bar smashed my face in when I was at the traffic lights. Like, they're sick and tired of it. So even in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco, they might have leaned Democrat with the presidential election, but they're throwing all of these woke DAs out on their asses. So there's a sea change coming. I think 2025 is going to see a sea change. And you give it another 6 months when these policies that we know work, tough on crime and punishment, the broken windows theory, tough on the border, forcing people to work for a living instead of sitting on their asses expecting a paycheck every week off the government. They work. They've always worked. And I think the time's going to prove him right. He's only going to go from strength to strength. I'm convinced of it. He's going to do a good job.
You've sold me. You've sold me. I'm not an angry Nick anymore now. I'm a happy Nick now that I've spoken to you, because you've just cheered me up. That's exactly what I want to see.